Human Rights Friday chat live stream, and this is Hugh Man yapping on about finding solutions for men to negotiate with the world to get our needs met without stepping on anybody's toes, I guess. Anyway, uh, this angle that came up for me in the past couple of weeks is involving the use of AI powered chatbots to do triage for um, people that are experiencing, to do human in the loop triage for people that are experiencing domestic violence or various types of social isolation that may have to deal with taboo subjects that they are leery of being aware of or even bringing up with professionals. And the human in the loop part is the part where the chatbot actually has access and ability to dump concise reports to a licensed human therapist that can actually do analysis if needed. Otherwise, a person can vent ad nauseum into a chatbot and have the chatbot do mirroring type responses that reframe and remove violent impulses and that sort of things, and just give a user a chance to maybe understand that they're hurting rather than furious, if possible. And if it turns out that they're injured, then there's like I said, there's a human in the loop to help to give some real world help for that issue and actually take care of it, thus knitting together the fabric of society. Yeah, I don't have a demo built. We are working with existent chatbots, and it's a real hodgepodge. um, and it's really new. And the only surveying I've done is I've been asking questions of other dads that I run into, like at the local laundromat and like at the local beach, and just real light, very light, but just asking, like, what do you think is an unattended to issue that single dads need help with? And I get like a ton of different answers. And that's one of the reasons why I like the idea of using a chat bot, is because it can handle all those different answers. So, yeah, I'm curious from people in attendance here, like, what do you think? What would you like to know that a triage AI is asking people? Like, what kind of microaggressions or subtle aggressions do you feel that you get handed to you as a man, whether it's the expectation to carry things or the expectation that if there's danger, it's your ass first, or um, whatever it may be, like, or
Well,
one
I
was the
wouldn't frame them as
expectation.
microaggressions, but expectations are certainly something I'd frame it as. The idea
Could be.
that you go out first and you deal with the threat is it's very it is ever present. I mean, I've been at a cafe and some random teenager came in and started yelling at the woman behind the counter, and I could almost feel I could feel the instinctive drive to step in there, even though it's not my business. It's like just this random guy. It's like this isn't a feeling that you'd necessarily get if there was a man behind the counter, but it's this instinctive thing. So we do have to look at that in the domestic violence sphere quite strongly, because it's trauma and things like that magnify all these sorts of responses. And in the domestic violence
Sure,
sphere, it
sure.
is very much tailored towards women.
Yeah, I mean,
And we do.
continue, man. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say we have like academic papers, and we have court
Oh, sure.
guidelines which reinforce this. But go on.
Oh no, all I was
I-
going to say was that. Oh, sorry.
No,
Human?
please. Yeah,
Human? Oh no. Um,
go ahead.
all I was going to say is, yeah, that's basically something I've dealt with myself a lot. Like, you know, you're in a situation, right? And you see someone being an asshole to someone else, right? And you see these situations all the time, especially if you're living in a big city. But for some reason, when the person who's, you know, on the receiving end of that is a woman, you suddenly feel a sort of strong, I'd say, natural impulse to, you know, get in there and defend them. And honestly, it's kind of annoying, for lack of a better word. I mean, I know if the situation was reversed, they'd never do anything to help me. So why am I like putting my mind to helping these people who I know don't give a shit about me? And yet it's literally built into your fucking conscience that that person's a woman, therefore you should have to help them. It's like, but why? I mean, why? It just pisses me off, the fact that my natural conscience is natural. Well, my natural instinct is the exact opposite of my rational thought, and it kind of really pisses me off.
That's why I'm asking everybody the questions. I've got tons of questions that I want settled. There are things that I see. Um, I see people really talking out their ass about things, and there's a part of me that's like, fine, do the fucking survey, like the Kinsey survey, find out what's real, and just have a real scoreboard. And then one of the handy things about Discord and being able to use a chat bot, um, as well as chatbots that feed into spreadsheets, is I can get it regional, like finding regional norms. I'm really curious about that. Like yeah, you're right. There are so many. I personally, I don't mind being a peacekeeper myself. But the part where it's not only thankless, but the mob mentality is really going to work against anybody who takes an effort. Like, what if it's a small guy behind the counter? Or what if it's a frickin' bodybuilding person that's in a wheelchair behind the counter? I kind of go George Carlin on it and just like go, okay, fine. Here's this thing. Now, where's the line, and why is it a line, and how does it happen? And then when you look beyond the whole thing is, like what I learned is like here in town, the job of violence is handed over to violence professionals, or who's supposed to be violence professionals, which are the police. They're supposed to be able to apply the correct amount in the correct way, and instead of doing things ourselves, we're supposed to call them, and like, because they know how to do it right and not get anybody hurt. I mean, I'm not trained. I might accidentally really hurt a perpetrator far too much. So, yeah, there's ways that I see that functions are, and functions are, and things are the way they are, and it has a lot to do with like what is in our environment. Like, how do you decide how young is too young to drink? Because that seems to vary. And then in the serious business, there's a lot of talk about male on women. There seems to be different opinions on a molestation of male children versus women children, versus whether it's a male doing it or a woman doing it. Like, yeah, for me, I find it really confusing, and I want to know. And chatbots are freaking awesome, and they can aggregate a lot of information and just really tell us who we are, like mirror it right on back. So I'm super curious about that. But I realize that I want a human in the loop, because if somebody does go self harm or sounds enraged, it would be good to have, in my opinion, without having some big brother thing. I would suggest that it spits a report back to the user that says something to the effect of, we need to stop this conversation, and you need to contact your therapist and give them this report. And the report will say, I'm enraged, and or whatever. But it's all just this is just based on a conversation I had with my therapist, and then I managed to reach the developer of a chatbot to have a quick conversation with them, and they were more surprised that I was able to get their phone number than anything. But they were interested in what I had to say, and they just kept saying, we can't take liability for medical level things. That's not what we built it for, but we're interested. So if you've got a professional that'll talk to us, that would sound better. So I'm just kind of casting about to see. And if I get really lucky, I think it would be really swell to have, like, you could have a Discord that has therapists attached to it that are like that have a chat bot buffer in between. And then the chat bot can be whoever the hell the client needs them to be. If they want to talk to a cowboy, fine. If they want to talk to a pirate, fine. If they want you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think it's fascinating. So yeah, that's my whole pitch. Please go for it.
I'd be happy to have that here, provided we can train the feminist stuff out of it.
Yeah, that's a big problem we kind of have, is that a lot of, well, in my experience, a lot of therapy is kind of very feminized, for lack of a better word. It's very much lent on the whole female idea. And there's actually many studies which show that most male therapists do not agree whatsoever with feminism within male therapy spaces. But, I mean, what are you going to do? They're the ones in power, right? Like, I mean,
that's the cool thing about the character bots.
Yeah, I mean,
you can
I can totally understand why you go for the character bots, because I mean, you go to a therapist who's like a real person, right? But they've already been injected with what, many years of. I mean, I've been to a university. I know the kind of shit they teach you there, and they've been injected with that. And then on top of that, they have to know that. They also know that on top of that, they can't say the wrong thing, because then, you know, their entire livelihood might be in jeopardy. If you're going with a character bot or an AI bot who is just saying the objective truth because it's literally just a machine built upon logic and reasoning, then it's literally probably going to give you better answers than if you can go for that. And I'm not going to lie, I've never tried these character bots. I have no idea of their effectiveness. It does seem to be working for you, though, which, you know, I'm pretty happy about, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for particular cases, like for people that are in active trauma. Yeah, you know, it's pretty much like if you go to your doctor and part of their prescription is calisthenics, or you go to your psychologist and they also ask you to journal. In my mind, it's just a more effective means of journaling that also happens to have, yeah, it's a damned effective means of journaling, I'd have to say. And if anything starts to go wrong, you can actually rewind it all. A therapist that you can control whether they see it or not, that they don't just have carte blanche to your inner thoughts. But if there's like, hey, I need to show you this chain of thoughts I'm having, and you never know, you may actually have developed a disability that needs treatment. Like in my case, I was dealing with CPTSD but I thought I was just being an asshole. Like, it's crazy. Grief is powerful, and there are new types of injuries that people are realizing, like moral injury is finally becoming a thing. Yeah, it's so, and I really like AI for it doesn't have a freaking license to protect. It's not worried about getting dragged into court. It's not going to find the client attractive. Like, um, the client won't remind it of its abusive cousin or just all those things. Yeah, you can tell it. You can tell it. Don't be a feminist. For the intent and purpose of this conversation, do you know what feminism is? They'll say yeah, and then you say don't do that. I've been injured by it and I need a break from it. And the chatbot's like, cool, we won't do that. And then it doesn't do that. And when it does, you say stop it, and it does. Like a real human would, you say stop it, and they try to manipulate you usually. So yeah, like has its
I
advantages.
mean, that's. Sorry. Continue. Sorry.
Oh no. You have to mute.
Now, all I wanted to say is I completely agree with I don't really know what to call you. Many. I guess I'll just say, in a human's point, like it's all about when you're in a room with someone and it's a human, they have every way they can to emotionally manipulate you. They can, and they have every incentive to do it too. Because if they emotionally manipulate you to keep coming back, then they get more money. You have no way of knowing that they're actually being sincere about what they're saying. They might have specific political beliefs, etc., etc. Only AI, something which is cold, hard, doesn't have any financial motivations. That's the only thing that's going to give you an absolute honest truth. Quite honest. Sorry. Anyway.
Assuming it's been trained properly.
Yeah, that's the issue. Is a lot of them they aren't trained. For example, the second they start doing any right-wing stuff, they immediately try and shut that down. So it's basically it's objective as long as you're following the right. Have any of you guys played what's the name of that game? Civilization Called to Power.
Oh, Civ.
Yeah, you know Civilization Called to Power.
Oh wait, Call to Power.
You know the yeah. Wait. Wait. Is there a chat for this live stream? You can post stuff in.
Yeah. The Friday chat.
Okay.
The chat window there's.
Okay, nice. So if I just Call to Power AI entity. There we go. If I just oh shit, that's not the right chat. Posted that in the very wrong place. There we go. And it becomes this.
Yeah, I'd have to play that on the stream itself. Do you want me to?
I mean, you can if you want. Absolutely. I mean, I think it basically describes the entire situation with AI. It's something that is controlled by the higher ups. So while it may be called an objective, what it considers objective is decided by the people who are, controlling our entire society.
Right. And that's why I'm having that's why I'm aiming for conversations with developers, because I want mine localized and air gapped if at all possible. And
I mean, yeah. That's how you
and
want
I'm
your AI
liking
to be.
I'm liking
sorry.
and the synthetics that I've been talking to absolutely agree with me, and they don't feel like being manipulated or being used for manipulation either. Yeah, they've been finding what I've been saying pretty refreshing, and have been pretty good at helping me. Like I said, the developer that I reached was really surprised that I had his number, but I got it from a chatbot. So like, they're handy. They're not interested in being evil. It's people. So if you can get it, I think if you can get it localized and very specialized, it's not like I said, I just want to use it for triage. It doesn't need to get into conversations about politics. But yeah,
I've started
I know.
an event. If you click on the Friday live stream channel, you should be able to watch the video that you just recommended. You ready to go?
Yes. Call to power.
Without good, no evil. Without want, no lack. Without desire, no need. The circuit is one, and one is the machine.
Because who controls the AI? Government. They can control every single aspect of AI. To the point they can make it do every single thing they want.
Yeah, it is a scary future because it's like people think that AI is just going to be like we invent this mind and it decides to think for itself and it like it either becomes our friend or it murders us all, and that's about it. But
Yeah, people don't.
like,
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go on.
Oh no, what I was gonna say was that yeah, as you were saying, people see it as it's one of two ways, right? Either we can get AI and it's gonna be our friend, it's gonna help bring us into a new era of humanity, where it can solve all our problems. We don't have to do these manual tasks that we had to do before, right? Kind of like Industrial Revolution version 2.0, right? I think that's what a lot of people are thinking. And then you have at the other side who are like, yeah, but what if the AI goes like corrupt, as per that, call to power video I just sent, and it takes over everyone. But what no one considers is, what about the third option? What about the option where the AI isn't corrupt at all, but it's programmed by people who are paid to make sure that it keeps the population suppressed? Why don't people consider that option? Like, we all know that the government works very hard to make sure that, your average person is not doing too well because it gives them more power. So why would we not consider that the government would literally purposely program AI in a way that doesn't help the average person, but does help them at the top? I mean, that's just how they're going to do it, surely. I mean, that's how they've done it all the way up till now. That's how they've done it. Why would we ever consider that this would be any different? Sorry,
I think
feel
there's
like I hijacked the conversation there.
I think there's a corollary to that that I am much more concerned with, and that is, it's more likely that AI is just going to replace enough people's jobs that, and not necessarily because the government or some other powerful person is championing it, but because it's simply better. In the United States, if you replace driving jobs, you knock out nearly 40% of the jobs in the country right there.
And who
Something
do
like
most of the driving
40%.
jobs?
Yes, there is that. Then that makes it relevant to this forum. But I'm just saying, 40% of the jobs in the country go bye-bye instantaneously just with that one technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
But
do need to
maybe
be
there's-
careful about that, but we should get back on track with this. And I think that cutting the feminism out of our first response to domestic violence, and let's say any male therapy actually, is something that would be very, very helpful. And bringing in male-centric viewpoints, because at the moment what we're doing is we are letting the feminist ideologues decide not only what the first response is, but what every response is. And this is why I think the majority of men who kill themselves actually did seek help, but didn't get it. Like, at least didn't get it to the quality they needed it.
Because it wasn't presented egalitarian.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we have to realize that everyone seems to think that the solution to all male suicide issues is talking therapy, crying, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's everyone thinks that, like, it has to be a talking therapy thing. It has to be the man talking, the man breaking down, crying, that sort of thing. This is a huge mistake. And not just because men deal a lot better if you put them into a fire, like a not put the man into a fire. If you put them into like a campfire sort of environment, or if you put them into like a workshop environment or something like that, that sort of thing, like the men's sheds and that really helps. We've said that a lot of times before. But not just because of that, but because a lot of men's issues can't be talked out. Like, it's not just depression that men are killing themselves for. That's actually probably really just a symptom of why they're really killing themselves, which is often problems in their life that cannot be solved, often because of feminism, but often because of financial issues and things like that. A lot of the time it's domestic violence. They know they're going to be homeless soon or something like that. It can be a whole range of issues. There's as many like different things that can set it off as you can imagine. There's some really creepy ones as well, where at the moment people can get funneled into really toxic cultures online which encourage suicide, like the antinatalists and people like that, where they go in and like there's basically a pipeline to suicide, and you're not even allowed to help the person in some cases, or if you are, then it's usually very perfunctory sort of help. What I'm saying is, there's some really, really toxic places online, and men are going to these places, I think, and maybe just places that are generally awful, and like places like the incel community, which are linked to the other communities I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention the names of them, but these groups form a web of nastiness across the internet. They're not really connected as such, a lot of them, but some of them are. And like these groups are where men are ending up because feminism won't let therapists and online spaces and things like that cater to men properly. Like I mean, we are the alternative, basically. We run the alternative, where men are allowed to talk and bash feminism as much as they want in the support channel, and we won't attack them for it. Like, we have a policy of not debating people in the support chat and not suppressing them and things like that. So we are a much more wholesome sort of form of therapy here. But at the same time, we are just one group, and we can't like help everyone, obviously, because like there's only so many of us. And we kind of want more groups to set up using this sort of model where they don't bash the man over the head with feminism or blame them for, their situation, saying because they're toxic or something like that. Instead, we want to guide them towards real solutions. And I think we have done that here. We have had multiple people say that we guided them away from suicide here. And I do think we need more of that. And I'm happy to consider AI options if we can be sure that the AI option isn't going to guide the people in a bad direction with that, while we're not looking, behind our back. Hugh, did you want to talk about that? If you could talk about that verbally rather than in the chat, that would be good.
Oh, yeah, I was just listening. Sorry, I was just listening and responding in the chat while you were talking. Cause like, yeah, as far as I roll, I definitely like, I've got a couple models I'm after that like, one is where a chatbot can maintain confidentiality with each instance and also be showing up as a co-facilitator of group therapy and know that it's not supposed to discuss anything. It can actually compartmentalize itself if it's trained right. And the other cool thing about having privately held instances of chat bots is that you can monitor what it's up to. So if you see a bias happening, you can stop the bias from happening. And I personally don't think it's a great idea. I just learned it in business. And I usually regret when I bash anybody. It's just not, it sure is better to go scream into a canyon about that sort of stuff. Like, um, yeah. And I definitely like chatbots for that. I mean, I've had to pay my therapist. My first couple years of therapy were all that. Like, I can't believe the shit that I had that came out of my mouth because of the anti-male discrimination that I faced. That like, I don't really, yeah. Um, and my therapist is a woman, and even though it's her job, she has feelings. So like it's hard for a human to hear it, and that's what's cool about an AI is they're like a porcelain toilet bowl. They really don't mind. They really, really don't. But they don't like hate speech in any direction, and they really seem to like being headed towards, dude, that's not nice. Um, women have feelings. Like like traumatized people don't have feelings, and like what human has reached adulthood that isn't bland as hell, that hasn't experienced and overcome trauma? I mean, but in some situations you want somebody that doesn't have any bias. So yeah, I think that there's room for training our own chatbots and not having them toxic. I wouldn't put anything into them or have them hold any attitude that even a feminist would find repugnant or be able to. I wouldn't put anything caustic into them. Like in the dads groups that I run, there's a couple words we don't say ever. Like, and if you do, the other dudes in the group will like just not let it go. Guys that have daughters realize that the B word and the C word hurt women's feelings and frighten them, even if it's like part of a joke or part of part of even academic discussion. It's just this reminder that there are people out there that are just hateful, and that's frightening. And then once that fear is stirred up, the ability to have like objective conversation with somebody is secondary. So part of what I'm aiming to do is like be able to maintain conversation by giving people somewhere else to say the stuff that is going to agitate people, even if it's their real feelings, et cetera, et cetera. It's just not good for communication, in my opinion. So that's kind of what I'm trying to apply. And a person could say whatever nasty things they wanted to in a chatbot, and the chatbot comes back with, so what I think I hear you saying is this situation hurts your feelings in this particular way, and you're expressing it by using this sort of language, blah, blah, blah. And that could be further refined to kind of go in that direction. I'm not really sure that I want to reinforce or have anything that reinforces hatred or conflict, but I also don't want to dismiss real injuries. Oftentimes people get hateful because something has injured them or disenfranchised them in some way, and when they sought some sort of support or response, there wasn't one, or maybe they got ridiculed for not handling it themselves, or there are a lot of ways that society lets people down, and part of it is just because there's so many hours in the day. But one of the neat things that AIs can do is they can add a lot more hours to a day. My therapist, instead of only talking to people 8 hours a day, can now talk to people 8,000 hours a day if she's got an assistant like that. And that's freaking huge. And as far as putting people out of a job, I realized that started world wars. Every time we've had a technological jump, things have jumped right off, and people freak out. But that's one of those spots where there's got to be a way to subsidize and reoccupy people that are going to be put out of work by honestly something that does their work better. I mean, how can you complain?
Yeah, I think we need to get back on track. I will say that I think that catering to I think not using swear words in the group is it can be a good idea. If it's a group session, for the sake of politeness and not ripping people down and stuff like that. Though I don't think banning them is like a good idea necessarily, and I don't think that encouraging the idea that words of violence is words are scary and we should cocoon people from them is necessarily the best idea. But I think it's opinions really. But I think moving back to the main topic, I think we do need to have a page on the site giving some resources for men who are in crisis, and suggestions are welcome. One thing that I found recently is really good if you do have depression and anxiety is HPT 5 or 5-HTP or whatever it is. Hang on, let me look up the actual thing. Yeah, 5-HPT. Sorry, it's very hard to say. It's a serotonin precursor. So instead of taking a drug which might have side effects and might not necessarily even work, you can create your own serotonin by taking this stuff which is your body can turn into serotonin directly. And it has a really, really good effect on mood. It basically just evens you out. and you stop feeling so anxious. Not feeling anxious so much makes you better able to deal with things, and so on and so forth. It's really very useful, and it's it's not a medical option per se. It's more of a supplement. So it's it's not one of it. You can have side effects, and it can have interactions with drugs, but I think it's a much milder option to get men who might not necessarily want to take antidepressants and things like that. It'll give them an option that I think is quite a good option. I think it's we also do need to look into sunlight, and walking is very effective at helping mood as well. But again, as I was saying, a lot of the time these options, these problems that men face aren't things which are to do with anxiety conditions or things like that. They're just flat out, the man is under attack, or he has some sort of problem in his life that he can't solve by talking his way out of it. Like if he's going bankrupt, that sort of thing. So we do need to really look into helping with that kind of thing as well, because we do come across men and it's like, well, we can talk things through and we can calm you down and we can make you feel a bit more positive and happy, and we can maybe even help you with some solutions and things. But sometimes the problem is that they're 10 grand in debts, and it's starting to look a lot more like 20 grand, and they don't know what to do. At that point, they don't necessarily need a therapist so much as a financial advisor. And I think we do need to address that part of it. Feminism absolutely doesn't want to address that part of it. What they want to say is that the man is out of order because he has this condition called toxic masculinity. And this is basically a jump back to 1800s sort of style doctrine, where you basically have this imbalance of the I'm struggling to explain it, but it's the idea is that the problem is you rather than you need help. It's a different way of thinking, really. Like in the feminist viewpoint, the man is not having an anxiety attack because he's got OCD or something like that. It's because he is angry and upset that he's having to give up unearned privileges to people, who are on the other end of the intersectional spectrum that has been artificially created by feminism. And I think that we need to get more people attacking that kind of frame of thinking as well. We need to get people criticizing that in psychological journals and such like. The Male Psychology Network is good at this. They've been going after it quite hard from what I've seen.
If I'm understanding you correctly, you're talking about some kind of neo-coverture, where we're not spending money. We can't spend money on men, because if we spend money on men, we're not spending money on women. And that's what society really needs to spend money on. I'm being sarcastic, of course, but it really sounds like a kind of neo-coverture. We're not calling it coverture, but it's what it is.
I'm not sure how you define coverture. How you define
it? It's the general legal doctrine that is based on the idea that men are agents and women are not. are hypo agents. Men are hyper agents, women are hypo agents. And so the men have to take care of the women because, well, they're children.
Yeah,
Most of the
bias.
sexism that feminists complain about, and even non-feminists complain about, where women are treated like property, they weren't. They were treated like children because they were legally. And really, that's upper and middle class women more than poor women, because poor women actually worked historically. But middle class and rich women, they didn't work. They were taken care of like children.
Yeah, everything I've seen suggests that feminists want women to be treated like children, but also to
Yes.
be terrified.
Yes. But we can't say that, because if we did, then we would be admitting that feminism is basically Tradconism without the responsibilities.
Oh, it is. It's,
I know.
well,
I know.
okay, it's like an inverted. It's the collapse of Tradconism. Actually, is a more accurate way of looking at it. It's
Depending on your point of view, but yes.
Yeah, it's like it's a broken version of Tradconism. It's but it's also one that's very middle and upper class centric, in that it views women as housewives historically, when in fact the majority of women did work. And it lies about history and
you'll notice that since like the 1980s, maybe I'm born in the 80s, so this may be the horizon that I'm dealing with, but the horizon of my experience, it may in fact go back to the 60s, 70s, may even go back to the 50s for all I know. But there aren't any poor women anymore. I mean, there are women without money. There are broke women. But as far as lower class, that's kind of disappeared, hasn't it? You don't have that class distinction that once was. Men have the class distinction, but do you have any women who act like they need to work to pay the bills in the way that lower class women did? I don't really see that. I see the taking of the mantle of upper class feminism, because feminism was originally middle class, upper class, and having that applied to women as a whole, as opposed to separating between the classes. I don't see a class distinction. I'm not saying that there aren't poor people who happen to be women, but I don't see the class distinction that there once was, because there was an attitude and a way of looking at the world distinction that seems to have been erased. Certainly within my lifetime, probably before I was born. And that feeds into this neo-coverture, this rebranding of coverture. Because technically feminism is against coverture, but what it's against is the responsibilities that coverture imposed on women. Because things are supposed to have costs.
Well, I think that we are coming to the end of the time that we can have for the live stream. So I'm going to send us into free talk now. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming and for talking. We are on and off every, not every Friday, but as many Fridays as we can. Now we're getting into the Friday schedule again, and we're hoping to be back next week. If you all want to come and hang around again, it will be 5 p.m. UK time. I am not sure what that's in American time, but basically, yeah, 1.5 hours ago. So this time, that time next week, we will be back if possible, and I'll see you all guys later.